Egill Saga is an Icelandic saga. The oldest transcript dates back to 1240 AD. The saga is centered on the life of Egill Skallagrímsson, also known as Egill Skallagrimsson, an Icelandic farmer, Viking and skald. It is generally referred to as Egla by Icelandic scholars. The saga is the only source of information on the exploits of Egill, whose life is not historically recorded. Stylistic and other similarities between Egill Saga and Heimskringla have led many scholars to believe that they were the work of the same author. Snorri Sturluson. Synopsis. The saga covers a long period of time, starting in Norway around 850, with the life of Egill's grandfather Ulf, called Kveldulf, and his two sons, Thorolf and Egill's father Skallagrim. Kveldulf is described as bigger and stronger than anyone else, gaining much land and property from Viking raids. He was a very wise man, hamram in battles and a shy recluse in the evenings. Extreme personal traits like these are seen in his son Skallagrim and his grandson Egill as well. After Thorolf's death, due to his broken allegiance to King Harald, Skallagrim and his father Kveldulf flee Norway to settle in Iceland. Skallagrim and Kveldulf have to flee to Iceland because of problems with King Harald Fairhair. It started when Skallagrim went to Harald's court after his brother Thorolf's death, but wouldn't give his service to the king. After escaping from the king's court, Skallagrim and Kveldulf come upon a boat that the king had seized from Thorolf, and after killing everyone on the boat and taking it, they sent a poem to the king to taunt him. On the journey to Iceland after the visit to the king's court and the stealing of the boat, Kveldulf dies of illness. Skallagrim settles in peace as a farmer and blacksmith at Borg, where his sons Egill and Thorolf grow up. The dispute between King Harald and Thorolf began upon his return from his Viking expedition, when Thorolf went to serve King Harald. Thorolf served King Harald well as his governor of northern Norway and was responsible for collecting tribute from the Sami. The king grew suspicious of Thorolf after the Hildiríðarsins. The half-brothers of Thorolf's close friend Bard slander Thorolf by falsely claiming to the king that Thorolf was not giving him the full amount of tribute that he collected from the Sami. They also falsely claimed that Thorolf and his men had planned on killing King Harald when they invited him to a banquet, but the farmers who were gathered got nervous and fled, hushing the entire plan. It was intended that when the king was drunk and sleeping, they would attack and kill him. Fearful of Thorolf's increasing power, King Harald went to Thorolf's hall at Sandnes. After Thorolf refused to surrender, King Harald set the hall on fire. When the men ran out, King Harald killed Thorolf, causing him to fall at the king's feet. The story then follows the tale of Egill and Thorolf Skallagrímsson. Thorolf Skallagrímsson goes traveling in Norway where he stops to see Skallagrim's friend Thorir the Hersier. It is here that Thorolf meets a young Erik Bloodaxe who is fostering with Thorir. Thorolf makes friends with Erik Bloodaxe by following the advice of his friend Bjorn and offering Erik his boat when they notice Erik admiring it. When Erik Bloodaxe becomes king, he sends an axe to Skallagrim, which Skallagrim takes as an insult due to an axe being a second-rate gift due to its non-ornamental use as opposed to a first-rate gift of a sword, and sends the axe back with a rude poem by way of Thorolf. The poem served to enhance the gesture of returning the axe and blatantly escalate the conflict between Skallagrim and Erik Bloodaxe because, while symbolically an axe may be destroyed, a poem cannot, making it a greater insult than solely returning the axe. Thorolf decides to throw the axe into the ocean and gives King Erik Bloodaxe a boat, saying it was from his father. It is in this way that Thorolf manages to somewhat keep the peace peace between Skallagrim and King Eric Bloodaxe, and he even manages to keep the king from killing Egill. Later both Egill and Thorolf go to fight for King Athelstan in his war, and during the battle King Athelstan separates Thorolf and Egill despite their objections. After the battle, Thorolf is dead and Egill is given gifts by King Athelstan to honor Thorolf. The story continues with the childhood of Egill, which foreshadows his future rebelliousness. Egill has shown an outstanding amount of aggression and strength since he was a young boy. At the age of 3, Egill had the strength of a 7 or 8-year-old and a mind of his own. He did not obey his father and did what it took to get what he wanted. When his father, Skallagrim, told his 3-year-old son to stay home while he attended a party, because he behaves so poorly, Egill goes against his father and shows up at the party. Although Egill is stubborn, he has a gift for words. He speaks a verse to Yngvar and is rewarded with 3 shells and a duck's egg. At the age of 7, Egill gets involved with the local games where he commits his first murder. Grim. Due to his short temper, Egill became upset when Grim displayed how much stronger he was than Egill and lashed out, hardly harming him. Egill was pinned down by Grim. Later, Thord and Egill took revenge on Grim, driving an axe through his head. The story goes on to tell the tales of Egill's voyages to Scandinavia and England and his personal vendetta against King Eric Bloodaxe. There are also vivid descriptions of his other fights and friendships, his relationship with his family, his old age, and the fate of his own son Thorstein and his children, who had many children of their own. The saga ends around the year 1000 and spans many generations. As Egill grew up, his aggressive nature did not cease. Egill went to Atloy and was attending a feast with Bard, his men, and King Eric. Egill, with his gift for words, speaks a verse mocking Bard and telling him he has played a bad trick on him and his men. After Bard failed at poisoning Egill, he was killed by Egill, who stabbed him with his sword. The act of killing Bard now puts Egill in a bad position with King Eric. Egill joins the army of King Athelstan, and when he composes a drapa in praise of the king, he is rewarded with 2 gold rings, along with an expensive cloak that the king himself had worn. After Håkon, King Eric's brother, returns to Norway after his fosterage under King Athelstan in England, Eric decides to leave Norway with his family. They arrive in England where Eric is appointed by Athelstan to rule Northumbria. During this time, Egill's father Skallagrim dies. 2 years later, Egill sails to England intending to see King Athelstan, but winds up crossing paths with Eric Bloodaxe. Eric is furious, but Arnbjorn convinces Eric to not have Egill killed if he can compose a poem in his honor. Egill succeeds and Eric allows him to live on the condition that he never again returns to Eric's site. Egill makes his way to see King Athelstan, who is fostering Thorstein, a kinsman of Arnbjorn. While visiting, word arrives from Norway that Thorstein's father died, leaving him a large inheritance. Thorstein, Arnbjorn and Egill make plans to sail to Norway to stake Thorstein's claim. Before they leave, King Athelstan convinces Egill to move to England and command his armies after the task is completed. After helping Thorstein claim his inheritance, Egill returns to Iceland and spends a few years with his family. During this time, both kings Athelstan and Eric Bloodaxe die, leaving Eric's brother Håkon ruler of Norway. Egill returns to Norway to claim lands won in a duel with AD.The the Short on behalf of his wife Asgerd. Along the way, Egill stays with Arnbjorn, whom he convinces to go to King Håkon on his behalf. Håkon denies Egill's claim, so Arnbjorn compensates Egill with 40 marks of silver. Egill and Arnbjorn go raiding in Saxony and Frisia, after which they stay with Thorstein Thrason. King Håkon requests Thorstein to collect tribute in Värmland or be sentenced to outlawry. Egill goes in Thorstein's place. Egill travels with some of King Haakon's men to Varmland and fight many battles, Egill killing many times more foes than his companions. Egill lives to an old age. Arnbjorn becomes a close advisor to Harald Eriksson, to whom Egill composes a poem. Egill's son Bodvar dies in a shipwreck. Egill composes a poem in his honor. Egill's son Thorstein has many feuds with Steinar, son of Onundsjondi, over land and cattle grazing. Egill becomes frail and blind. His one last wish was to travel to the Althing and toss silver he received from King Athelstan for the people to fight over. Since no one was able to accompany him, he wanders alone and allegedly concealed his silver treasure near Mosfellsberg, giving birth to the legend of Silver Egill's interpretation. The character of Egill is complex and full of seeming contradictions. His multifaceted nature reflects the extreme qualities of his family. A family of men who are either ugly or astoundingly handsome, a family which includes shapeshifters, who become suddenly mad, violent and cruel, though they may at other times be deliberate and wise, a family which neither submits to the will of kings, nor stands in open rebellion. His character is also reflected in the storytelling conventions of the text, a difficult text populated by characters with similar or identical names, living out various permutations of very similar stories. The two handsome Thorolfrs die heroic deaths, while the brothers Skallagrim and Egill both die in old age after spitefully burying the wealth in the wilderness. The descendants of Kveldulf find themselves involved in two complicated inheritance feuds, at one time rejecting the claims of illegitimate children of a second marriage, and at another time claiming land on behalf of another illegitimate child born to similar circumstances. At times in Egill Saga, Egill comes across as a brute who often acts quickly and or irrationally for no reason. He appears to be a shallow creature, and in many instances the only time he appears to put much thought into anything is when he composes and recites poetry. Egill is in reality a man of many virtues which are central to his character. He values honor, loyalty, respect, and friendship above all other things. He takes it as a great personal insult when someone breaks any of these values, and as a result he typically destroys that person either through physical force or through poetry. His reactions are usually on a grand scale, to the point where they are often outrageous and entertaining. The value code by which Egill lived was the same as that of many Scandinavians at the time of the story's composition. The story is set in a time when many people were migrating, most notably from Norway to Iceland. Life was harsh, particularly during the long, cold winters, when it was crucial for people to get along and work together. The character of Egill, despite his many flaws, is ultimately representative of the true Scandinavian spirit. Poetry is used throughout most of the saga, and Egill is a master of the art. Egill's saga takes place during a time of oral tradition. Poetry was used to establish a person's reputation for good or evil, and a great poem could make its characters immortal. Rulers valued poets for their ability to make or break a man, increasing his fame or besmirching his good name. As a poet, Egill was a powerful and valued man. One of the first negative poems in Egill Saga is a threatening poem in chapter 27 that displays Skallagrim's power after he had just plundered a ship and killed many men. Later, in chapter 38, Skallagrim composes an insulting poem about King Eric after the king had given Skallagrim a gift not commensurate with his worth. In chapters 55 and 81, Egill composes two powerful poems that show how grief-stricken he is when his brother Thorolf and his son Bodvar die. These poems are also meant to honor the two. These are only a few examples of the many poems in the saga which portray people in a positive and negative light. There are also poems which show a much softer side to the Icelandic male characters. One of these is in chapter 55, when King Athelstan acknowledges the death of Egil's brother, Thorolfs, caused by the king's error in judgment. Egil thanks the king with a number of praise poems showing how considerate and generous the king is. We see a very different side of Egil in chapter 56, when he declares his secret love for his future wife, in a love poem. In chapters 60 to 62, Egil is confronted with a situation where he must greet King Eric, with whom he is on bad terms. King Eric wants Egil dead, and at the urging of his friend Arnbjorn, Egil composes a drapa of 20 stanzas praising the king. Thanks to the poem, Egil is allowed to leave Eric's court alive, since killing him would make Eric look like a fool. In chapter 80, Egil composes another praise poem of 25 stanzas expressing his gratitude towards his lifelong friend Arnbjorn for saving his life in his meeting with King Eric. These more positive poems show a kinder side to the typically rough and violent people of Egil Saga. As a work of literature, Egil Saga is generally considered to be amongst the best of the Icelandic sagas, along with Njal Saga, Gisla Saga Sursana, and Laxdæla Saga. To this day, many Icelanders claim descent from Egil through the membership in the Myra family, one of the few legally recognized family names in Iceland. Characters. A detailed family tree connecting major and minor characters through blood and marriage can be found here. Translations. Green, W.C. The Story of Egill Skallagrímsson. London, Elliot Stock. Edison, E.R. Egill Saga. Cambridge, Cambridge University Press. Jones, Gwyn. Egill Saga. New York, Wayne, The American Scandinavian Foundation. Fell, Christine. Egill Saga. London, Dent. ISBN 0460872656. Palsson, Herman Edwards, Paul. Egill Saga. Harmansworth, Penguin. ISBN 0140443215. Scudder, Bernard. Egill Saga. In Reinson, Vidar. The Complete Sagas of Icelanders including 49 Tales. Volume 1. Reykjavik, Leifur Eriksson. ISBN 99799299308. REPR. Scudder, Bernard. Egill Saga. In Smiley, Jane. The Sagas of Icelanders. A Selection. New York, Penguin. pp. 3-184. ISBN 99799299308. REPR. Scudder, Bernard. Egill Saga. London, Penguin. ISBN 0140447709.